presentation. And I won't digress. I try not to do that because I'm not spring chicken anymore and I get confused easily. We're going to talk about Sumner High School. First, let me acknowledge Senator David Haley. Senator Haley, would you stand up? This is kind of a digression from Sumner High School, but it isn't. It's part of a historical fact that many of us remember when Roots first appeared. Yeah. Well, his uncle, Alex Haley, came to Kansas City, Kansas, where the real family historian of the Haley, lived. And they lived at 1200 Everett. We have history, documentation, pictures of Senator Haley's father, George, and Alex sitting there talking to cousin Georgia. For those who haven't listened to the album, because Alex did an album, and hear him talk about cousin Georgia. And he stated that when he got to Gamma and found the family, and when he came back, he was so excited. And the first call that he made was to his brother George and said he's found the family and he wants to talk to cousin Georgia. And they said that cousin Georgia had died. He gave him the date. He said, I went and did the research on the time. And she's the one who kept telling, she finally told him, now boy, you get on out of here and go do what you got to do. The time that she died was almost the exact time he set foot in that village. But to hear him say this, and he's a great storyteller, it really makes children just fine. But I want to throw that out because the history that we have here in Kansas City, Kansas, that we don't know anything about. And why isn't that a historical site? The history of Sumner High School is a history that I feel that should be told to all citizens of Wyandotte County. It is a history of students and citizens overcoming adversity and achieving the highest standards possible. It is a great American story. I feel that if this history had been made available to students that did not attend Sumner High School and those who are presently in school, it would make a difference. This history should also be made available to teachers and administrators so they could understand that all black schools and students can and did achieve high standards. Amen. On June the 23rd, and last Thursday, June the 23rd, and last Thursday, July the 13th. And Granville, he had to go, Granville is an actor, Granville O'Neill, the gentleman sitting there, and he has to go to rehearsal. But Granville, myself, and Dr. Dolores Pinker and Elmer Jackson III, we were at KU participating in a program at the Spencer Museum. It was a whole week program where they were studying the Native American education, African American education from 1840 to 1960. And we were panelists. The feedback that we received from the first presentation, and there were teachers from all of the United States. On June the 23rd, and there was a different group on July the 13th. The feedback that we received that our presentation was one that the teachers most enjoyed because it's something they deal with and could utilize. They went to Haskell Institute, spent a day there. They went to Topeka, Brown versus the Board of Education. They did days there at KU. They were there for a whole week. The question and answer period was very interesting. And many of the teachers said, how did you do it? How can we duplicate this in our system? And I often think right here, what would happen if we would use some of the same things to our teachers and administrators here in the Kansas public school system? In 2014, Commissioner Moses Tanner did a documentary, Sumner High School, entitled Sumner High School, The Best Kept Secret. I don't know how many of you have this. It's a documentary. It should be in everybody's house. Ms. Tyner was a 2000 graduate of Sumner Academy of Arts and Sciences, which was once Sumner High School. She attended this school from the 8th to the 12th grade and stated, "No one ever told me about this rich history at my school, and I wonder why." I suggest that you purchase a copy of this documentary and listen to the views of many of the graduates of Sumner High School. I graduated from Sumner High School in 1949, so that gives you some idea how old I am. And attended Sumner Junior College. Blacks could not go to the Kansas Junior College, as it was called at that time. I was in the last class at Sumner Junior College when it closed in 1951, and blacks were allowed to attend Kansas Junior College, which is now Kansas City, Kansas Community College. Dr. Paul Jewell, in writing in his book, The History of Kansas City, Kansas Community College, he states that Sumner Junior College is either best or worst kept secret in Wyandotte County. So unfortunately, we don't know anything about it. Sumner High School came into being as a result of an incident that occurred April 12, 1904. Prior to that time, all Kansas City, Kansas high school students attended high school, which was located at 9th and Minnesota Avenue. Roy Martin and some of his friends from the high school was at Kerr Park, which is out in the area where Ward Field is now. And they were there for track practice. I would like to state that if you go back and do research and read papers, you'll read different versions of what happened. But this is information that was documented and was told by the Martin family. And I might add that Granville O'Neill, who's the curator of the Sumner Alumni Room, has done extensive research on Roy Martin. Also at the park was a young black man, Lewis Gregory, who was not a student at the high school. There was a small lake at this park, and Lewis was snagging bullfrogs. Lewis Gregory was crippled, severely crippled. But he had a rifle that he used to shoot bullfrogs, which was common before they jumped back into the pond. He stated that the white students began to harass him, and he became frightened and ran to get his rifle, ran and got his rifle, turned and shot Roy Martin, who died immediately. There's another story about what really happened. It states that Lewis Gregory was harassing the white students. In 1904, there were lynchings going on all over this country of blacks with little or no consequences. So the possibility of him doing this, in my opinion, was certainly invalid, and especially with his handicap. White community was up in arms, and the next day, a mob assembled at the Wyandotte County Jail, which was located at 7th State Avenue, with the intention of lynching Lewis Gregory. A group of black men, led by the Reverend George McNeil, which I talked about earlier, was pastor of Pleasant Green Baptist Church, drew a line and said that any man who steps across that line will have breakfast in hell tomorrow. There were a number of black men who had been discharged in 1898 and were part of the 23rd Kansas Colored Volunteer Infantry. Yeah. And they still had their Springfield rifles. Nothing happened. At school the next day, the white students would not allow the African American students to enter the building. The following day, Superintendent Pearson closed the school until the fall of 1904. Lewis Gregory was charged with first-degree murder. He was found guilty and sentenced to hang, which was later reduced to life imprisonment. but he was pardoned after serving 11 years. When the school reopened in the fall of 1904, the white students attended school in the morning and the black students attended school in the afternoon. The afternoon school was named Manual Training School. Many of the African American community, many people in the African American community, led by Corbin Patterson, they were outraged at the naming of the school. And so finally a meeting was held to discuss this issue. Present at this meeting was the superintendent of schools, M.E. Pearson, G.B. Buster, who later became vice principal of Sumner High School, J.E. Patterson, who later became principal of Sumner High School, and Mr. Porter. The name agreed upon was Sumner High School. Sumner High School was named after a senator from Massachusetts who was a real abolitionist during his time. He was struck by a senator in the Senate because of his position relating to slavery. And he was knocked down some steps and never recovered. Mr. Buster relates the reason why they chose the name Charles Sumner. There were three reasons. He said Charles Sumner was a scholar of the highest rank. He embedded the best culture that New England could afford and traveled and studied extensively in Europe. Number two, because Charles Sumner was broad-minded. He believed in equal rights and equal opportunity for all men, regardless of race. He fought for the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment and was satisfied only when they were added to the national Constitution. Number three, Charles Sumner was courageous. He did not know fear. He stood up for the principles that he considered right, even in the face of physical danger and social ostracism. Because of the upheaval, a bill was submitted to the Kansas State Legislature. And it's here, I'm not going to read all of it, but it was called the Segregation Bill. And here's what the first paragraph, I'm not going to read all of it, it says, whereas an unfortunate incident having no bearing on the school system of Kansas City, Kansas, aroused the ire of a number of white patrons and white friends of the Kansas City, Kansas High School and caused them to use such incident as a pretext to eject abruptly all colored students from the said high school, to bar the doors against them, and to deny them the privilege of attending said school. And whereas such act is a gross violation of the school laws of the state of Kansas and an infringement on the constitutional rights of the colored citizens of Kansas. First paragraph is great. They were saying that this was never should have happened. But understanding what could happen, they had three sections that was enacted. I'm not going to read section 1, but I'll read section 2. The original section 6290 of the General Statutes of 1901, of which section hereof is mandatory, and all acts and parts of acts is in conflict with provision of this act, be and the same is hereby repealed. That act was that there was no discrimination in the schools. That's repealed. Section 3, this act shall take effect and be enforced from and after its publication in the official state paper. The bill was approved February 22nd, 1905, and published in the official state paper February 28, 1905. Sumner High School was the only all-black high school in the state of Kansas. And this was done by the state legislature. So Sumner was special, probably different from any other high school in America, in that they had to amend the state constitution, so to speak, to create this school. And for many of us, it's unfortunate that it happened, but I'm glad that it happened that way. Governor of Kansas, E.W. Hoch, was H-O-C-H, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, was opposed to this bill. He felt that it was an injustice to penalize and further handicap an entire group because of the action of one person. He signed the bill under protest, and only under provision that the building housing the new high school be equal to the one used for white students, and that the teachers and administrators be paid the same salary as the white teachers and administrators. So Sumner High School and all the schools at this period were virtually segregated. So this school was the only school where teachers, and this was quality people, they could come here and get paid the same as white students, as white teachers and administrators. The first class graduating from the manual training school had 6 students. They were all girls. In September 1906, the new school opened with 175 students with J.E. Patterson as principal. In 1908, John Marquis was appointed principal. He graduated from Fisk in 1902 with an A.B. degree and graduated from Dartmouth College in 1904 with an A.B. degree. He left Sumner in 1916 and was appointed as president of Langston University in Oklahoma. In 1916, Mr. John Hodge, who was a teacher at Sumner High School, was appointed principal, and he served until 1951, 35 years. During his tenure as principal, school attendance grew, and he recruited teachers from the top college and university in the country. Because the teachers received equal pay as the white, it became easier to recruit. Teachers wanted to come to Sumner. During Mr. Hodge's tenure, Sumner was known sometime as a citadel of learning, and also the Harvard of the Midwest, a high school. The reputation grew all over this country. The black community, and it was a community in the real sense, was immensely proud of Sumner High School. The home, the church were very supportive of the school. These 3 components